All right, Mel. Here comes the segment that is going to bore the hell out of people, but it's so important, ladies
All
and
right,
gentlemen.
let's do it.
Let me get to it. Here we go, folks. Y'all's favorite male that thinks he's smart, Elon Musk, and the IPO bubble. Ladies and gentlemen, I am about to break this thing down because a lot of y'all are thinking about jumping into this IPO mess that is about to happen. And folks, make no mistake, it's a bubble. And let me give you a couple of reasons why it's a bubble before we go to the video that supports what I'm saying. There are rules when these initial public offerings, basically a stock is up for you to trade when it comes on. That's what IPO is. There's a rule that people who invested privately and have shares before it becomes an IPO have to stay on board, in some cases 3 months. I think the smallest case I've seen is 30 days. So that there's not a pump and dump situation. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the Trump administration has cut that shit down to like 10 to 15 fucking days. Okay? Because what all of us smart folks know, especially those who trade stocks like I do, folks in the financial industry, they know the economy is being propped up artificially by tech. And even in that sphere, it's about 10 tech companies. They are passing around this same huge pot of money. Yeah. And sooner or later, a couple of these companies are going to get caught without a musical chair. And to better explain that, folks, I got my big homie, Andrew Jink. Please go subscribe to his channel. This dude has, I think, 3.2 million subscribers. Phenomenal financial guy. He can get a little wordy. And when he does, you can come to me to get me to break it down in the kind of hood jargon or the trailer park jargon or the street jargon you need, because I'm a chameleon and I can speak them all. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, this is what's going on with the AI bubble. Buckle up, and anything he says, I'll break it down a little deeper so that you understand. Here we go.
That's because on May 1st, the NASDAQ introduced something called the fast entry rule, which cuts the waiting period for a company to be included in an index from 3 months to just 15 trading days. And what it also does is it gets rid of something called the float requirement that would have disqualified SpaceX, for example, from being included. The rule change will also force index funds to artificially inflate how much of the company they'll have to buy. So they need to move fast. They need to pump up the value as high as possible and get as many people to buy it. So let me just give you an easy example of how they're pumping this, and then we'll get into the specifics. But imagine I lend you $100, right? And then you use that $100 to buy a Pokemon card. That card goes up in value $1,000. I then get to write down on my tax return that I made $900 in profit, even though I never sold anything, even though that $900 exists only on paper. And then I use that paper profit to justify lending you another $5,000 to buy even more cards. Right? That is roughly a simple way of explaining what's happening between all these tech companies. So what you actually have is a system where big tech invests into AI startups. The AI startups then use that money to rent computing power back from big tech. Big tech books the investment gains as profit and then uses that profit to justify spending even more. The money is mostly going in a circle. Earnings bubbles are much harder to see coming. What's the difference? In a normal bubble, the stock price goes up while the earnings of the company stays flat. So the price to earnings ratio goes up really fast with no correlation to its earnings. But an earnings bubble, like this one might be, it's that the earnings themselves that are inflated, right? The price to earnings ratio can still stay low and look reasonable. And that's because it's that E, right? The earnings number. That's what's being artificially propped up, which is exactly what could be happening with that accounting trick we talked about. Right? The paper gains from Anthropic investments are inflating the earnings of Google and Amazon, and it's making their PE ratios look healthier than they might actually be. And history has a very clear track record with earnings bubbles. It happened with home builders before 2008. Their PE ratios looked reasonable right up until the moment they didn't. It happened with banks before the financial crisis. Perfectly healthy earnings numbers. right until the earnings themselves were shown to be built on assets that were worth a fraction of what they were being carried at on the books.
Mm-hmm.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that's the kind of bubble we're getting ready to have. An earnings bubble that is artificially inflated and a circle jerk. A circle jerk where there's not going to be enough hands to go around to pull all the jerks. That's the problem we're dealing with, ladies and gentlemen. A full-fledged circle jerk. And when it comes to earnings, PE ratio, folks, is just basically a number that tells you the value of a stock. It's the price to earnings. What makes stocks go up? Good earnings and profits. And they're going to be artificially inflated because the normal rules that are put in place to give time to see if these companies are really making money. Well, you saw in the beginning of the video, Trump done cut that shit. He done cut that down to like 15. Oh my God, this is about to be ugly. Lord have mercy. Folks, I'm going to give the floor to Mel because if she has any questions, I'm going to answer them. Then I'll come back with my rebuttal. This is going to be a mess. This is going to be like the financial crisis that we saw with the housing meltdown when those assets were bad. We could see that. The way people look at this is you can't see it because it's a paper inflated earnings bubble. Floor is yours, Mel.
I think this is a really clear case of domestic financial terrorism.
100%.
This kind of behavior is really only possible because the vast majority of people in the United States don't have stocks, don't have education around it. So the laws this is what happens, and then it becomes the playground of the wealthy to continue to make money. And it's kind of shocking to the level of math. Like, thank goodness Lamont is here and able to break that down, because that math looks like dark magic to me. It is so almost secretive and quite like you manipulate just the right parts. And it's incredibly dangerous what we're seeing. We don't know the AI bubble is not stable economically. And I think that pretending it is deeply problematic. And that's what this is. It's like pretending, but you can, because most of the people, what are we gonna do about it? What are we gonna do about it? Fucking nothing right now. Like, like we don't have a choice. This is the discomfort and the rage is because we're feeling the compression of these dynamics of oppression and the manipulation of our own finances. And it's like watching a slow car crash that you're like, some of us get, and some of us are like, but it looks bad. You know what I mean? That's how I see it.
The couple of things you can do and how this relates to Black people and minorities is you always hear people talking about we need to get financial literacy. Yeah. And when I get these little simple blanket sentences like that, the shit really drives me crazy. Yeah. Financial literacy on what? Writing a check, balancing a checkbook, debit card. No, we need to get more granular. We need to get detailed. People need to know how stocks, bonds, treasuries work. This should be in school, but the rich people do not want it in school because they want you to be sucking on their milk teat because it is so complex. You hear these numbers and you just get brain fog and you stop.
Yeah.
There are people I know who have MBAs that don't get the knowledge that I've gotten because I put myself in these corners with these white dudes who are crooks, technically, but on paper, they look like great businessmen. And they taught me so many tricks of the trade of how to manipulate taxes, how to dot I's, cross T's, and do exactly what they're doing with this right here. Yeah. And how to use credit to avoid paying taxes.
Yeah.
And so this affects everybody, not just simply because it's Trump, but it affects everybody because a lot of people are about to go and blow money thinking that SpaceX is about to go to the moon. And something that Andrew didn't mention, SpaceX is not just SpaceX. Elon Musk has Twitter up in there, which is losing money. He's got Starlink up in there. He's got another company up in there. And then he's got another company. And so if you just look at Starlink and SpaceX, they look like they're doing great. but the overall profits of the company is losing $1 billion a month. It's losing. And the way you get people hyped for an IPO is you tell a good story.
Yeah.
And this happens every time new technology comes out, whether it's been the internet, whether it has been Microsoft. The people who jump on board and invest first are the ones left holding the bag, and new people have to come in and pick the bag back up to push the technology. So my advice to everybody is find someone like me who knows this stuff, pick their brain, and more importantly, instead of putting your money into the IPO, what's going to wind up happening, this shit is going to crash. And you want to be where money is going to go up. And that place is called treasury bonds. And if you need to know how to get a treasury, all you do is go to treasuries.gov. Get yourself a 6 month, a year, a 2 year. I would get one until Trump leaves office, because Republicans do the same behavior every time. They fuck up the economy. Then Democrats got to come fix it, put rules back in place. And while all that's happening, stocks go topsy-turvy. Everybody goes into bonds, which is going to press up your rates. And with the guy that Trump has just put, Kevin Warsh, who he wants to make rates artificially low, it is going to do nothing but it's going to do nothing but expand it. And you're going to have other countries, they might start deciding, look, my T-bills that I own with the United States, I might call them, which is going to help you make money if you're in bonds. So my advice would be find someone who knows this stuff as well as I do, talk to them. And if you feel like you've got the itch to put money somewhere, put it in a treasury bond at treasuries.gov, ladies and gentlemen. Go for that.